If you have said to yourself, I should write that, or if someone has said to you, you should write that, then I'm talking to you because you need to write. And that's why you're tuned in to yWrite. Hi, welcome to yWrite. I'm your host, Angela Grout, and thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of yWrite, where we discover why writers are writing, and we're going to find out why you should be writing your story too. Today I have a guest that is right from the local area, and she is here and she's written a children's book. She is a writer, a leadership coach, a human resource advisor, and she is also the founder of Cookie Productions. Her name is R.A. Cook, and R.A. is the author of Good to Be Me, Discovering What Makes Me Special. It is an interactive children's book, and we're going to talk about the children's book and what accompanies that children's book also. So I want to welcome my new friend, R.A. would be April Rain. R.A. Cook. R.A., thank you. Hi.
Hi, Angela. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, and I'm sure you're used to the A going first.
Yes.
So.
I mean, A is always first. So I'm like doing a little transfer, but yeah, because when I take notes for April Rain, I'll always write A.
Right.
Now I'm doing the R.A., which
we're
has
mixing it up.
Whole other stories behind
exactly.
there. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I'm going to tell the audience how I found out a little bit about you. Is there was an article in the paper that you had written a children's book, and I was like, oh, I want to meet her. Like, I've written a children's book and thought, I want to sit down and discuss, the process of it to help other people who have written, who want to write a book.
Right.
And, we were able to meet for coffee, and, lo and behold, we found out that we have a lot of things in common.
Yes.
And you also have your own podcast.
Yes.
And
a new podcast.
Yeah, and I was just on it, and I'm going to be another guest on it. Twice. Two
We're
times.
having you back because you were such a good guest. So.
Yeah, so your podcast called Well Done You.
Well Done You, yes.
And how long have you had the podcast?
So it just debuted a few weeks ago. Yeah. So we have 2 episodes out. You were our second episode.
Which is nice. My favorite number's 2.
Oh, so. Good. That worked out good. Yeah. Have a third episode in editing right now and doing 2 tapings this week. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah. And your podcast we listen to. Don't see like this.
Yeah, but there may be some video clips that come out, but it is designed to be a listen to podcast.
Well, I'm going to attach to this video the interview I did with you.
Oh, excellent.
So people can listen to that.
It was a good one.
It was fun.
I enjoyed our conversation.
It was neat to see the table reversed about, why I write, why I, am on yWrite.
Yeah.
So, let's get right down to this children's book because we have very similar paths.
Yes.
That, you wrote this book and you also made a companion book for it, which is a coloring book.
Right, exactly.
And when I was doing a day at the park, I originally set to do a coloring book. And we didn't. We went the full whatever. I am in the process of doing a coloring book with it. So, it's something like I knew it was something I wanted to do, but now I'm like, okay, so what prompted you? What came first? Did you know it was going to be a coloring book, or did you know it was going to be a book?
I didn't know about the coloring book. The book came first, and I love A Day in the Park that you wrote with your daughter. That's a great book. But when I had a lifelong dream of writing and publishing a book, and I thought it was going to be a very different book. I was not intending to write a children's book. But I was having a lot of discussion with people that are raising kids now or grandkids, and our kids are adults now or, young adults. But it's a lot harder to be a kid now.
Yeah.
And it's harder to raise them, in my opinion. We just have all this information coming at us, all these images all the time, and
telling them what they should do, how they should do things, the influences.
A lot of influence, and I as a parent, I made so many mistakes, but I'm thankful.
Really? I haven't made any.
I'm so thankful that I did have a lot of good resources and tools, and coming out of the pandemic, there was a lot of discussion about how that was going to impact our kids, and it just was heavy on my heart, and I kept wanting to tell kids, you're so amazing just being you. Mm-hmm. Be you, and that's where the book started, and then it just kept coming and coming, and put the book I thought I was going to write aside and started with Good to Be Me. And it really is an interactive book for kids to just take different aspects of their life and talk about what they like, what they're looking forward to. And it's kind of taken on a life of its own. People are using it in a lot of different ways. I have teachers bringing it into the classroom. I have people bringing it into work with their teams and asking those questions as a get to know you. I have a couple grandparents who have grandkids that live in another state. And instead of calling them and saying, hey, what is, how was your day at school? Where you get fine, they're actually filling out a page together.
Oh, I love that. I was just going to flip open because you do have, fill in the blanks.
Yes.
Which is really nice, and it helps, a little bit like a journal kind of, but it helps with self-discovery. And even though it's a children's book, I want to say it's more of like a graphic novel book because, so many of us do journalize and, we turn to the, the adult section for journals, but I mean, anybody can use this.
Yes.
I mean, and for me, I know that like different stages of your life, it's good to be me, but at the same time, I always say, where am I going? I had a flower shop for many years, and that was my identity. That was my passion. And, I can say it was good to be me then, but I have to realize now I have to say it's good to be me now.
Yes,
and discovering literally what it says, discovering, what you're doing. I mean, it's very important for kids, for adults, for everybody.
Yeah. And the coloring book came, just talking about what you said, is I already was having readers ask me for more. They wanted to do more. And so, I'm thinking about maybe doing other versions of it.
Nice.
But, coloring and learning, learning more about it, it is, really good for mental health.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I color every day.
Yeah, it's good for meditation and focus. Mm-hmm. And so in researching, I was like, this is a great opportunity to give another version.
Yeah.
I talked to a lot of readers and learning how they were using the book, and that's where the coloring book came. But I can't talk about my book without mentioning Mike Kionis, my illustrator.
Yeah, I was going to say, how did you get an illustrator?
He is so talented. He's in Nashville, and he just, I told him, my vision for the book, and shared a lot with him. He asked me so many questions so he could really get a feel for what I was trying to accomplish, and I told him I wanted animals in the book. I didn't want anybody to use this book that was about them and not see them.
Represent them
exactly.
In some way.
So I said, let's do a bunch of really cool animals. He just went above and beyond. And
I love the fox, and
he's just his animations are just amazing. I'm just so proud of the work he did. And we were a good team. So when we teamed up for the coloring book, he said, why don't you put some word searches in? And I thought, that's fantastic. He just has great suggestions. And that is a part that people love so much, doing those different things. So I found him. I met with another friend who's a writer. She, when I told her I was working on my book, she said, well, I have a friend who I've gotten to know that writes children's books, and would you like to meet her? And I said, yes.
Of course, yeah. When you're in that stage, it's like you're starving for
information.
Yes. It's like, please, somebody just guide me. And you don't know where to go to.
Yes.
So.
And I was starting to look at illustrators. I was looking at them nationally. I was looking at them locally to see what their work looked like. And she mentioned to me, how she found her illustrator through a Facebook group. Mm-hmm. And I said, I've joined that Facebook group. I said, I've been looking at some illustrators. She said, well, if you want me to introduce you to my illustrator, I'd be happy to. I said, that would be fantastic. Mm-hmm. And one conversation in, I knew he was the guy. Yeah.
I mean, the universe just,
they put the right people in our path.
I don't know if you know the story of our illustrator. I mean, just like, my daughter and I wrote the book, and we're on the beach, and she's sharing with this family that, she wrote a book. Yes. And the father and the mother are over listening, and turns out the father happens to be an illustrator, and he had won, I believe it was the 2014 Children Illustrator Award for the state of Massachusetts.
I just love it.
And he's a DC comic artist.
Right.
And she comes running over to me and she goes, Mom, I found someone who can illustrate our book. And I'm like, we're in the middle of we're on the beach. I'm like, what? She's like, her dad. So, you know, I started talking to him, and, you know, next thing you know, we got the
There
book
you are.
going.
Yeah.
And because he works for DC Comics, like, I really wanted, we talked a lot about making storyboards for the movie of April Rain.
Yes.
But it's like, it's $200. Like, they were saying it was $200 for each storyboard.
Right.
And, you know, you think like one storyboard for each chapter. I mean, it's not necessarily that. It can be, you know, more, especially when you have a couple storylines going on. And I mean, there's over 30 chapters. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't have that kind of money right now. I would love to do this. But one day.
Yes.
And, you know, it's like when you're getting the person that could do it, you're like, oh, I want to take advantage of this moment. And, you know, finding someone that is a good illustrator is important, and having the universe line it up.
Yes.
But being able to collaborate with them and communicate is so important.
It really, once you have that teamwork, Mike designed the logo for my podcast. He designed my business logo. He's done a lot of work. And I know as I write other books that are, you know, not children's books, I'm going to be counting on him to do the cover with me.
Yeah, and so I was going to say, like, did he do the layout of your book too?
We worked together on that. Okay. You know, I had specific things in mind and how I wanted it laid out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because I know, like, you know, I talked about how when, you know, I wanted it so that when a teacher's reading it and they're holding it, like, the kids can see one side and the teachers can, you know, read this. So it was very specific.
Specific,
yeah. So, you know, it's, you know, and everyone has their own way, you know.
He would probably tell you I was a little specific on something.
And you have to be. It's your book. It's your book.
Exactly.
And so you own the artwork?
Yes,
do you own it? So
I do.
So he was an illustrator for hire?
Yes. And so that was what we wanted too, because you never know what's going to take off.
Right.
I've recently gotten a great suggestion from a reader to name my characters. I didn't do that initially because it's an interactive book and about you.
Right, and you want the kids to be able to maybe name them.
But kids are saying, what's this one's name? What's this name? So we're starting those contests now where I'm going to have my readers help name. And you never know, you know, what might take off. I've thought about doing, because I love them so much, maybe some, you know, animals or stuffed animals or different things.
I can see this. Yeah. My head right now is going, whoa, wait, it's going to be a good cartoon show.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, to come up with the critters, like it's almost reminding me of the department store Kohl's does the Kohl's Cares books.
I love those.
You know, and you get the book and you
get
stuff,
the little
plush.
because I've had readers already ask me for those.
But even you know, and the Thai company did the Beanie Babies.
Yes,
you know, with their little tags, and it has, you know, their birthday and a little saying about them. And even, you know, especially if you're having someone name this, like to have the story behind, like why it was named that, or who named it.
Who named it? Yes.
You know.
And then I had another friend. I was talking about how I'm going to lay out the contest and getting some, you know, input and suggestions. And my friend Lisa, she's such a creative thinker. She said, you know, when you do your first contest, you should then name a character after who gets picked for naming that. And I thought, I love that. So we're going to do that. We're going to have our readers, and readers have already been giving me names at my book events. But we're going to do some stuff online too. And so they're going to name the first one, and whoever's name is selected, then they're going to get to be a character.
So, I mean, you've created a whole life that this book will just continue to flow from, which is wonderful. And, you know, it's so important to have our work be important to other people. And the fact that you can focus on the Good to Be Me collection series, you know, is really
it's exciting.
It's exciting, and it's such a gift.
Yeah, I have had people tell me that they've learned a lot about their kids. And I have some adults that are filling it out as a keepsake for their kids.
Oh, that's nice.
So I think that's nice too. You know, we always want to know more about our parents as we get older.
And so I have a few therapists, and I have you know, teachers, and also a lot of people who work with people with autism and things, using the book A Day at the Park, because it's about your imagination and things. And, you know, we have questions at the end. One of the fun things the therapist will tell me, like, you know, it'll say, oh, you know, this is what they did at the park that day. What do you do when you go to the park? And for kids who haven't gone to a park, they can start the imagination of it.
Of thinking.
But for children who do go to the park, they're pulling information out and finding out where they can help the child. You know, like, you know, for instance, you know, oh, Dad takes me to the park, and, you know, he sits on the bench and reads a book, and I go play. But you're like learning, you know, what the what the
Yes,
relationship is like, or
exactly.
mom takes me to the park and we do jump rope and we play tennis
Yes.
and, what the interaction is. And it's really been eye-opening,
Yeah.
And because when this one therapist was telling me, I said, oh yeah, I go, and then, I'm going to have the dark mind here. Oh yeah, and then the little boy's like, oh yeah, and then this guy comes over and says, I lost my dog. And I went for a walk in the woods. She's like, yeah, I haven't had that one yet.
Stranger danger.
But it opens
Yeah.
up the avenue, and that's the thing is like if we can create imagination and allow, people to see themselves in a story, that's important.
I think that's life, right? What information do we get out of conversations,
So you promote your book well done, you.
Thank you.
That's the name of our podcast. But let's talk a little bit about how we promote things because,
Yes.
it's one thing to sit down and, get an idea for a children's
Right.
book, meet an illustrator, publish it. But now you got to market it. You got to
Yes.
sell it. You got to get it in people's hands. So can you share with us like some of the things you do? Because you do a lot of great things.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. For me, I really didn't know how to go about it, so I tried a lot of things. And one of the things that's always been important to me is embracing my community. And so I looked for events that also were tied to a particular fundraiser or a charity event. Like I do the Trees of Hope every year, which benefits Ronald McDonald House. The great team at Gary Rome does that event every year. And different things that just help, with
The community.
community and raising things. So I like doing events like that. I've done a lot of events at bookstores, different things like that. I do a lot on social media.
How do you get into the bookstores?
Well, I think it's walking in and introducing yourself. You have to have that skill. And it's funny, I remember when I went to do my very first one, I just was not feeling confident about it. And I was talking with my son, my youngest son, Max. Both of my oldest son is in sales, and my youngest son was doing sales at the time. And he said, Mom, all I get is no's. He said, you just have to, if they want the no, you can't take it personally.
Yeah.
You just got, and he gave me really good, like a little encouragement and some things to say. And I remember walking in and saying, they can only say no. They can only say no. And I talked to the person probably for about 20 minutes, and they were not buying into it. And I just said to them, I was very nervous coming in to talk to you today. I'm just trying to figure out, my ways around. And she took a chance on me and let me have a book event. But it is going in, and I do hear no. I hear, well, we're not doing events right now.
I find it's more important and more. It makes more of an impact when you go in person.
Yes.
Like sending the email.
Yes.
I wrote a book. I'd love to do a book signing at your store. It just kind of,
I'm sure they get bombarded. Yes.
So it's like when you get the one-on-one, but it is, you have that little heart palpitating moment sitting in the parking lot going, I'm really going to walk in here? And, because you have to be the self-promoter.
Yes.
And it's like, and I'll remind myself, I'm not promoting me, I'm promoting the book. I'm promoting the story.
Angela, that is so good because I have confidence in the book.
Yes.
And I know it's a great book if people give it a chance. And so I just remember that and go in, and the right doors will open.
Yeah.
So
and when it's kind of a right fit. Too.
Yes.
If you need to be comfortable in that environment.
Yes.
And I when I first started pitching some stories, it's kind of funny. I took Dear Baby Get Out, which is memoirs of childbirth.
Yes.
I use it for writers, and I say this a lot. Like if if you have a story inside you, you have to birth it yourself.
You have to get it out. Yeah.
You can tell people that story, but it's not getting written on its own. You have to do it. And I pitched it to a company that published middle school books. And I intentionally did that because I thought, okay, if I'm going to get my first rejection, I want it to be easy. And she was like, it sounds like a wonderful book, but it's just not the genre that we would publish. And it was such a nice little rejection letter. So I was like, I totally understand. Yeah. I totally understand. And I just laugh about how I made sure I'd get rejected.
Yes,
and
that's hysterical.
Put in the right thing. And it's just like you have to get used to the rejection, which can hurt your ego and hurt your confidence.
Right.
But again, like you said, you have to have faith in your books.
Right. You know, it's funny because I learned that lesson in corporate America. I had to ask for things, and I was not comfortable with it. And I just got used to saying no. But then starting in a new world, it's like I had to gain that confidence again, you know, to hear the word no. And it's okay to hear no, you know.
So can we talk a little bit about your transformation into this author world?
Sure.
You know, I want to know because you were in corporate America.
Yes.
And then you left and now you're doing this. Like, how did this transformation happen?
You know, I had a wonderful career in corporate America. I got to do a lot of things. And I think the skills are similar in that, you know, in corporate America, you have to be a good storyteller. You need to be able to communicate, you know, key information, whether you're talking about your project or you're delivering a presentation. You have to be a storyteller. And so I think, you know, that always has been something that I have, you know, worked on and wanted to do. But I also know that if you're, you know, working with a group of people, adults tend to learn and remember from adult learning theory that, you know, stories tend to be a great way that we connect and we learn. So, you know, being a trainer at one point in my career, learned a lot about adult learning theory and, you know, how those examples or those real life stories really would hit home more than anything else that you were talking. So, and I did a lot of writing, you know, did a lot of communication pieces and a lot of newsletters and things like that in my career as well. So writing has always been a part of my role.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And, you know, I am going through that whole transition of changing from, you know, the corporate America of owning a business and being a business owner to, you know, kind of managing this kind of business, you know. But like as a florist, like I have to listen to the story of someone who's coming in to translate that story into the bouquet that they want, whether it's for
what a great
you know
example.
a wedding or a funeral or even a birthday.
Yes.
But you know, especially like the weddings and funerals, like you know they share a part of you know their own life, their own history, their you know whatever it is. Like you know, you have a bride come in, you're like, okay, well, what are the colors of your wedding? What kind of flowers do you like? And you know, you're getting this information to create a story for them.
Yes.
And you know, I definitely see like the transition from doing that to this very similar because you know I am translating a story and at the same time having to work with deadlines. Flowers is a little different because it's a perishable product. This isn't necessarily perishable unless you're like in the news, like because those stories, you know, I don't want to call them perishable, but like because it's so timely, you know, you don't want to be reporting about the, you know, LA fires in, you know, 3 years. You have to talk about it now, you know. And I'm praying for all of the fires going on there right now. Like, oh, let's just end them and have world peace and comfort. And there's always some sort of like tragedy going on. I don't know. It just breaks my heart a little. You know,
it is tough. Just even seeing the news this morning, thinking of all of them.
You know, so you know, I wake up and just say, you know, thank you. I got another day. Use my hands, use my voice, whatever I can do. Like, you know, let it be good for others and hopefully benefit me too in some way.
I think a good storyteller is curious. You know, you're very curious and want to know more about people, and I found that you know the storytellers that I love are very curious too. So you're doing the books, you're marketing the books, you're running a podcast where you're interviewing people, and then you have this production company, Cookie Productions. When did you start Cookie Productions, and what is its like kind of purpose? Sure. So Cookie Productions, I started in 2021 when I was transitioning into you know, wanting to be a business owner outside of corporate America. And I wanted just a company that I could continue to have a lot of avenues, you know, still wanting to do work as an HR advisor and as a consultant, and then also be able to start, you know, my writing journey and become a published author, do a podcast. So I wanted a company that I could do, you know, multiple avenues through. So
I kind of switched over the Agile and Flower Shop to like AFS Studios.
Okay,
and I was like, well, I could still be a florist in the studio, but you know, I can also, you know, kind of do some other
Let's not close
thing.
any doors. You know, let's keep them open because I know, just knowing me, there's going to be things I want to do that I don't even know yet. You know, so
I always say, like, oh, I don't like any doors closed.
Yeah.
I want my options,
Yes,
you know,
yes.
and some doors do get closed,
Yeah.
but it's okay. It wasn't for me,
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
it's for somebody else. And
That's okay.
You know, when I am at the doctor's and I have to get blood drawn or something, I always say to the nurse, I'm like, this is where I know everyone has a calling, because my calling is not to draw blood
exactly.
from anybody.
My calling would not to be a nurse. I have a
Right.
sister who's an RN, and I'm in awe of her.
Yes.
Another sister who's a teacher, I'm in awe of her.
Yes.
You know, I just
And
those.
there are callings for
Yes,
everyone.
yes.
So the door may have been there for the opportunity,
Yes.
but then I have to politely decline
Yeah.
and say, okay, that's not for me,
Yeah.
but I'll go, let me find out
But thank
more.
goodness for him. I think about how many times I call my sister for, advice about, things that are going on medically, or my other sister, raising my kids and needing advice about, being in school with them. So.
Well, I think you would have made a good teacher, though.
Oh,
for
thank
sure,
you.
for
I
sure.
don't.
You don't. The patience.
I don't know. Maybe I've enjoyed training and working with adults,
Yes.
and in those opportunities. But yeah, a room full of kids is a little intimidating to me.
Well, I mean, I have taught, and it's I enjoy it. I enjoy kids, but I'm kind of sort of moving more towards the elderly now.
Yeah.
And, it's still kids, but different, and it's nice. Well, I'm so glad that you came on. I mean, it's so exciting to hear about, everything that you're doing.
Thank you.
I love this book, again, children's book, but a book. I mean, just the whole series of, what you're doing with Good to Be Me, and I think the Good to Be Me series has just begun.
I think so too.
I mean, I see adult things coming out,
Yeah.
adult journals.
I've already had that request to
Yeah.
do a version that's just focused on the workplace. So.
I mean, there's so many journals
Yeah.
out there that
Yeah.
we need to remind people it's good to be me.
Yes,
Good to be
exactly.
you. Like,
no one
embrace
can hear.
who you
Yes,
are.
we don't hear that enough, and that really is the message.
yeah, I mean,
Thank
everyone
you
is
for
here
that.
for a reason.
Yes.
Everyone has a purpose. If we all did the same thing all the time,
Yes.
the world would be a very
Be yourself.
boring
Be
place.
yourself.
So
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So where can we tell the audience where we can find your book,
absolutely.
buy your book, get the coloring book,
Good,
listen
yeah.
to your podcast?
So both of my books are online, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you get books. But you can also request them at your favorite independent bookstore if you would like. So, and Well Done You, my podcast, is available on all of the major podcast platforms.
Apple, Amazon, Spotify.
All of them, yes.
Yeah, and I will put the links for your book.
Oh, good.
And for the podcast.
Yes, and they can listen to our conversation.
yes.
And we have another one that we're going to be taping.
Yeah.
I'm excited
I
about.
know, I'm excited. I get to be a two-time
Yes,
guest. I
yes.
know, I love it.
Excellent.
And yeah, it's going to be a little bit different, this one coming up.
This
because,
one is,
the first one we definitely talked about, my writing career
And your
the
journey,
journey
yes.
here. And then we found out that, we have angels watching over us.
We do.
So
And
we're going to
such
go
an
in
amazing
a
connection.
little angelic spiritual.
We are. It's going to be a little bit of a different theme,
I'm
but I'm
excited.
excited about it.
I'm very excited.
I'm looking forward to it.
I know it's part of my own spiritual journey
Yes.
to share stories
Yes.
that I have. So
You need to. I read April Rain, and it was just so good.
Thank you.
It was so comforting. And
Angel's Journey.
Angel's Journey.
Yes, Angel's Journey.
I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
Angel's Journey.
Angel's Journey, and it was so comforting, and I
thank
really, really liked it a lot. Gave me a sense of peace.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Because that was
April
the
Rain
mission.
is next.
April Rain, yes. We'll give you a sense of peace too, but
Yeah.
you've got the murder in there and a little bit of finding out, who did what and why.
Yes,
So,
yeah.
well, thank you so much
Thank you for
coming
having
on the
me. I
show.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
And I want to thank you, my listening audience, for tuning into this episode of yWrite. For those of you who might be new to the show, or those of you who are here every week, at this time I start to do a writing prompt because this show is about why you should be writing too. And we've talked to author R.A. Cook today, and we discussed her book, Good to Be Me. And I want your writing prompt today to start with those words, good to be me. And I want you to set your timer for 5 minutes, whether it's a timer on your phone or if it's a timer on your microwave or just glance at the clock. Just take 3 to 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be very long. And I want you to either make a list or write us a story of why it's good to be me.
Oh, I love it.
All right, so thank you so much. I want to thank Studio 954 for making this show possible. And again, please follow and subscribe to the YouTube link, which will be down below. And thank you for tuning in to yWrite, and I will see you next week.